Welcome to the Spicerer's table. You're looking at a different view today of the table. Today we're going to make corned beef. We're going to make beer boiled corned beef today with potatoes, carrots, and braised green cabbage. We're still in this lockdown, unfortunately, but it allows us to be safe. If we don't open up until all the ticked boxes are met, then we're going to be safer. So what we're going to do today is cook corned beef. And we're going to do beer boiled corned beef. And this is a standard corned beef from a supermarket. This is a corned beef brisket. There's also corned beef round, but I prefer the corned beef brisket. It has more flavor and it's going to be juicier and more succulent when it cooks. And as you can see here, it's beautiful looking. We're going to place it in the pot. Do not remove any of the fat. And then we're going to add the seasoning packet that comes with it. It's a packet of pickling spice. Pour that in. Now we'll get rid of our glove and our plate here. And we will add the rest of the ingredients, which is going to be some more pickling spice. About a half cup's worth. Plus one onion, half of an onion that's been sliced. We're going to use the other half of our onion in our braised cabbage recipe. And then we have 3 cans of beer, which we're going to add first. And then after we add the beer, we're going to add enough water to cover. And if later on during the recipe we need to add more water, we can. We're going to put these 3 cans in here. And I'm just using Stella here, but you could use any lager. Not a heavy beer. Don't use IPAs. They're going to be too bitter. And don't use porters or stouts. Wheat beer might be nice in here too. Now we're going to pour our water in here. This is about 2 quarts worth. I'm going to put a little more in here because I want it to stay covered. Okay. And that's it on the water. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to put this on the stove. We're going to bring this to a boil on the stove, drop it to a simmer, and let it simmer for 3 hours. That's the least amount of time you want to cook your corned beef brisket. So we're going to let it go for 3 hours. At 2 hours time, we'll be coming back and I'll show you how to make braised green cabbage with apples. So we're going to put this on the stove, turn the burner on, and once it comes to a boil, that's when we can set our timer. So we'll be back in 2 hours to check up on our corned beef and start our green cabbage. I'll see you then. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table. The corned beef has been cooking about 2.5 hours now. It's got about 37 minutes left to go. And we're going to start our braised red cabbage. First I'm going to turn this burner down here. What I did to start this recipe is I have preheated the oven to 300 degrees. And what I put into the pot here was I put a heaped 2 teaspoons of bacon dripping. You could also use vegetable oil like sunflower oil or avocado oil in this. Make sure you don't use olive oil. It just doesn't work for this recipe. And I rendered out 2 slices of bacon cut into lardons. And as you can see, it's fully rendered. And we're going to turn up our heat all the way. And we're going to talk about the spices for this. What we're going to use in the way of spices is 2 bay leaves. I have 1 whole bay leaf and 2 halves. Also going to use a cinnamon stick that I broke up. About 1/4 teaspoon of coriander seeds that I lightly crushed. 1/4 teaspoon of caraway seeds and 1/4 teaspoon of dill seeds. And we're actually going to add the spices into this first. And stir them in the hot fat just for that second so that their flavor gets absorbed into the oil. This is similar to what you would do when you're making Indian food. And next is our onions. Our other half an onion. We'll add that in here. And now we can turn our heat down. Get it adjusted down here. I'm at the table here doing this so it's easier to show you everything. And this is going into the oven. So this is going to be an oven braise at 300 degrees for an hour. So I'm going to start with our onion. And at this point, I'm going to put a little salt in here. And then we also have one tart apple that's been cut up. And I cut the apple, peeled it, cored and peeled, cut it in half, and then I cut each half into 3 or 4 planks, and then cut the planks in half this way, and then chop like that so you get these little pieces. You don't want to go too fine. And then I have a head of cabbage that I shredded. Okay. Next we'll add our apples in here. And I'm going to raise the heat and let everything cook together. I'm going to put a touch more salt just for the apples themselves. I'll grab a little spoon here. The next ingredient we have is a half of a cup of still apple cider. This is made by Martinelli's. I'm going to grab the bottle to show you. Still Martinelli's apple cider. This is what you use for making mulled cider. So we're going to use half of a cup. We're also going to use a quarter of a cup of apple cider vinegar in this. We've also got some beer and some lemon juice, and to sweeten just a little bit for that sweet and sour balance, what I have done here is I have taken about a tablespoon of light agave syrup. You don't need to cook it long with the apples in there. Now we're going to get our liquid, start putting our liquids in. We're going to put our apple cider and our vinegar. And we're going to let that reduce just for a little bit. You would often see this preparation with red cabbage, but today we're doing it with green cabbage because it goes so well with corned beef. Next is our agave syrup. And I like agave syrup because it's lower in sugar than regular sugar. And you don't need to use very much of it for it to be for it to have that nice sweetness. If you just want that, stir it in, because you need to have that balance of sweet and sour. And we're going to let all of this liquid cook down about a third before we add our cabbage and our beer. And if need be, we can add more liquid if necessary, but we don't want to have too much liquid because you don't want to overload. This time we can also season with pepper. And when the cabbage goes in, I'll add a little salt for the cabbage. And then we'll bring it to a boil, slap the cover on, and throw it in, toss it in the oven. And it'll be about an hour to braise. You could start checking it at 45 minutes, but we'll let it go an hour. Okay. Now we're going to start adding in the cabbage. Little by little here. We should be able to fit all of this in here. I'm going to stir it every so often so we can get it to start to break down here. Okay. continue to stir. We want it to start to break down a little bit so we can fit all of the cabbage in here, because we want to get all of it in here. And at the end of this, when you're serving this recipe, you don't want to eat the bay leaves or the cinnamon sticks. Hunt them out, remove them, or you could leave them for decoration. Just make sure people know not to eat them. Put in some more. I think we can get it all in here now. Yep, all the cabbage is in here now. Now we need to put some salt for the cabbage itself. That's fine, we'll adjust the salt at the end. I'm going to put a little squeeze of lemon juice in here. Maybe less than a tablespoon should be fine. And we'll add our beer. This is just another can of lager beer. Use the same beer you used for the corned beef. Comes about a third of the way up from the thing. Now we'll give it a good stir. And when it hits a boil, we will then transfer it to the oven with the lid and let it cook. If you don't want to use bacon in this recipe, you can leave it out. You could also try and substitute beef bacon if you can't have pork. You could always just leave it out and this would be perfectly fine. Just use about 1.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil instead. So we're going to check it out. Okay. I'm going to put the lid on it. And I'm going to turn the timer on for 4 minutes. I'm going to let it come up to a boil, 4 minutes on the burner, and then I'll slide it into the beautiful oven that we've got preheated. And I will come over and I'll take a look at the corned beef. I'll be out of the shot for a minute here. Yep. Okay. Corned beef's doing all right. It needs longer. And what I'm going to do is the corned beef has 27 minutes left. I'm going to put the timer on for 1 more hour on the corned beef and start that timer. And I can hear this boiling, so cancel that timer. Get my pot holders and we're going to go directly into the oven with our cabbage. Put it in the middle of the oven. Shut off the burner. Since we're not using it anymore, we'll just disengage. I'll wait to disengage that once my thing is in the oven, and then we'll disengage our burner. This goes into the middle of the oven. And there you go. That's going to go an hour. I have a timer set for that, so we'll see everybody in about an hour and we'll show you the status of everything, and I'll show you how to make the horseradish and mustard sauce. And so we'll be back in about an hour. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table. Our corned beef and our beautiful cabbage are in the oven. They are finished and ready to go. What we're going to do now is I've turned my corned beef water back on. We're going to dump our potatoes into the water. Get rid of this sprouting piece here. Put them all in the water. These are mixed. These are what were labeled as steakhouse potatoes. So what we're going to do here is we're going to bring this back to a boil, drop it to a simmer, and once it's at a simmer, we'll let it cook for 20 minutes and it'll be done. Real quick and simple. I don't have any carrots to use, or else I would also put carrots in this. But you can use what you like because we're all in this together. I'm also going to put, as of right now, into this water, I'm going to put a little salt into the water because the water's not going to be as flavored as you would, as salted as you would think it is. So I put just a little bit, and we will stir this in. This hits a boil, just let it go 20 minutes. Then at that time, we'll be at the table. I'm going to show you how to make the horseradish. And while these cook, we'll get ready and we'll make the horseradish and mustard sauce. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table. Now we're going to make our horseradish and mustard sauce. We're going to start here with about 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. I'll go ahead and use the rest of this here. It's just maybe a little over 1/2 cup. Okay, that's fine. Now we need 1.5 cups of sour cream. The mayo I use is I like to use an extra creamy Best Foods, or if you can find heavy mayo, it works better. It's a lot stiffer product. So this we need about 1.5 cups worth. That's fine. I like to get it mixed together. And you want to use full fat sour cream here. You don't want to use no low fat sour cream. Now this is horseradish mustard sauce. So next we're going to add all of our ingredients, which is a tablespoon of the Coleman's prepared mustard, which is a real strong spicy taste. Tablespoon of Miley grain mustard, as well as a tablespoon of Grey Poupon, which is good, strong mustard. Also going to put in the shake of Lea and Perrins sauce, a few dashes of Tabasco sauce, squeeze a lemon, just pull out this lemon seed here. Do that. And then we need to put in horseradish. So we're going to mix this up first before we add our horseradish in here. I'm going to go a little yellow because of the mustard. Now if you don't like mustard, just do horseradish. And if you don't like mayonnaise, use all sour cream. You could technically use all mayonnaise if you like. Now we need horseradish. I like it pretty strong, so I'm putting about 1/3 cup in here. Give it a good stir. I'm going to grab a tasting spoon here so we can taste. Give this recipe a taste. I'm going to add one more ingredient in here. Put some salt, fresh pepper, a little more horseradish, another couple tablespoons because I like it pretty strong. And then about 1 tablespoon of dried chives, which is one of the better freeze-dried chives actually. It's nice and strong. Now this just needs to be refrigerated for 20 minutes before using it. And then when we come back, we'll be ready to go, and I'll show you how to plate up and how to slice corned beef. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table, and we've got our corned beef on the cutting board. We also have our cabbage that I did take out the bay leaves and the cinnamon sticks, and I just gave it a little taste and then seasoned it with a little salt, and it's ready to go cook and serve in the same container. Potatoes put in a warm bowl. If you're cooking carrots along with your potatoes, what you're going to want to do is cook it for about 25 minutes in the boiling water. And I started slicing the corned beef. I'm going to show you how to do this. And this corned beef was naturally cured utilizing celery powder rather than actual nitrates. That's why it's coming out differently than if it had been cured with actual nitrates. So that's good right there, and then we'll slide this onto the plate. If you like, you can remove the fat, but there's not too much, so I'm not too worried about it. Then we'll slide this back on the platter here. Okay. Next is some potatoes. If you want, you can put some butter on these potatoes, but I don't think there needs to be any. And then beautiful braised cabbage and apples. Put a little of the juice on it. And that's your beautiful corned beef, folks. It's easy, simple. It's just another way to have corned beef and cabbage rather than just having boiled cabbage. You can have braised cabbage. You can also do braised red cabbage. But I think braised red cabbage is much stronger in flavor, so I choose this. And then we have our nice horseradish and mustard sauce on the side. It's beautiful stuff. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned where we explore the cuisine of the world via the spices. Peace out and keep it real. Cheers.